So essentially, there are different visa categories for you that you could be eligible for. Okay, so what we recommend people to do is to understand the difference in all these different visa categories. And like what Brian's saying, with the 188B, for instance, traditionally that was quite popular for a lot of people who are asset rich, where they're able to use that and then buy state bonds, right? But it seems to be there are some changes that are going to be coming for the next few months. So it's something to definitely look out for. If the funds are actually going to be quite negative interest, then it'll be quite interesting to see what
Yeah.
what designated investments that you could do.
I believe like I when last seen, and they're looking to actually invest it in sort of more riskier funds to actually
So they
promote
do okay,
promote sort
yeah.
of like emerging companies and obviously venture capital companies right over here to build. So they're definitely going to be a little bit more risky than the traditional treasury one.
So I think what we would do is actually in the coming future, we might actually want to consider doing a designated investment webinar,
Yeah.
perhaps, and let people understand what's going to happen because a lot of our clients are quite happy not investing and being very passive and just meeting the residency requirements. And I'll go that through the slides here. Okay, so sorry, I just can't see the top there. You just a bit cut off there. Oh,
Oh, there we go.
that's not it. Or was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So the 132, the minimum net assets is $1.5 million or more. With the 188 is 800,000, and with the 188B is $2.25 million. Okay. There is no points test with the 132 visa, but there is a points test for the 188s, which are score of at least 65. The 132s also have, or all the business visas have an age limit of 55. However, with the 132, depending on your state, there is an eligibility for those over the age of 55. For instance, in WA, there's an allocated spot of one every month. Okay, so we've assisted clients at the age of 60s, 70s, and actually, I don't think we've gone to 80s, we've gone to 70s.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a benefit there. Now, the annual turnover is a major difference here. With the 132, you must have an annual turnover of $3 million. Okay. And this needs to be done in the last or in 2 years in the last fiscal years immediately before applying for the visa. Whereas for the 188A visa, your business needs to have an annual turnover of 500,000 or more. And again, this will be measured in the 2 out of the last 4 year criteria. In the 188B, to qualify, you need a qualifying business to have at least 10% ownership of an eligible investment of $1.5 million. Okay. The ownership interest or experience, you need to have 51% or more of the business with a turnover at least $400,000 per year for the 132 and also for the 188A. Okay. And the criteria is essentially the same for both those visas. When you see in the 188B, this is 3 years experience in managing one or more qualifying businesses or investments and have a successful investment and qualifying business activities. Okay. So this, for a lot of our clients in, let's just say, Southeast Asia, if you are asset rich, you buy property and sell, you buy property and sell, this is where you be considered as a qualifying investment. But if you hold a piece of land for 15, 20 years, it might be deemed too passive and it might not meet the criteria. Okay. So it's very important to demonstrate that you have a successful investment history.
Definitely.
Okay, so these are the different criteria for the other states, right? So in New South Wales, there is a requirement for you to transfer at least $3 million if you're in Sydney or $2 million in regional New South Wales. So that's the outskirts of the Sydney capital or the capital city, Sydney. In New South Wales, you need to employ 5 full-time employees if you're in Sydney, or 3 full-time employees if you're regional. There needs to be a business investment of 1.5 million in Sydney or $1 million in regional New South Wales. Whereas in Western Australia, you need to invest at least $1 million and have 1 full-time employee. However, if you're doing a property development, this would be $2.5 million and 2 full-time employees. And this is a pretty recent change. In Victoria, if you were to do any property development, you actually need to demonstrate that you have relevant experience or the qualifications to do property development. And this needs to be a minimum of $2 million, excluding the land, okay? There is no mandatory English requirements. However, for the 188A, to qualify for this visa, you must invest and own a business in Australia. The business in Australia must turn over at least $300,000 per annum, and you must satisfy 2 of the following 3. Business assets of at least 200,000, or employ at least 2 full-time eligible employees, or personal business assets in Australia of at least 600,000. And that's where we normally encourage people to buy a property, okay? English is not mandatory. However, there are additional fees if you do not meet the minimum English requirements in terms of functional English. But it's not mandatory. You can actually pay for the second visa application fee, okay? And for the 188, should have been a B, okay?
Yeah.
To qualify for your 888 visa, is that transfer at least $3 million in Sydney or 2.25 million in regional New South Wales, and a business investment of 1.5 million in a designated investment, okay? Whereas in Western Australia, it's still $1.5 million in a designated investment and additional $500,000 in any other Western Australian assets. So this is also a recent change as well. In Victoria, you need to invest 1.5 million in a designated investment, an additional 500,000 in venture capital fund, no less than 24 months prior to the permanent stage. Okay, and again, the English criteria is there, where if you don't meet it, you will obviously have to pay the second visa application charge.
All right. So in this section, we'll speak to you. Obviously, when they throw out the vague terms such as investment experience, business experience, having all this on a business visa is very important. Obviously, for the 188B, you will need to show that you will have investment experience and business experience in the qualifying business. So obviously, in this section, we'll sort of discuss maybe the things sort of like we feel that it sort of meets all these criteria. Okay. Obviously, having a successful business career is obviously something such as insolvency or bankruptcy history. Trading losses in your business could be sort of part of the process on determining successful business career. Direct involvement in management. This part's really important because obviously most of our clients come up to us and they have a business. They are a shareholder of a business or some sort, but then in the end of the day, they don't actually involve themselves directly in the business. They just hold 20-30% of the business, and maybe it's their parents' company or a company that they bought into as an investor. To show business experience, you need to show daily management. You need to show things of your position is especially important. Correct. You need to show the number of employees that you're hiring, your organizational chart, which shows what role you're sitting within the company. And obviously making senior level decision making is actually very important in regards to strategies, policies, and also the contracts of the business. Investment experience is more related to things like the 188B. So the 188B sort of wants them to show that you are a genuine investor. You've gone out, you've done your property investment, you've done your cash investment, you have real estate, you have managed funds, you have ownership interests in business and cash in the bank, and you're actively tracking these investments. You have to show that obviously these investments are good and positive. Recently, obviously, we've looked into things like in eligible products such as residential property. If you can prove the residential property is used for investment purpose, then it's possible. But if it's just something that you live in, that's not doable. Superannuation funds as well is not a valid product, but obviously if it's a self-managed super fund, it is.
Mhm.
Okay. I think you want to speak about this.
So yeah, the source of funds are very similar to what I was saying before, is the assets have been lawfully acquired. Okay, you can inherit assets from your family and your parents, etc., but you need to be able to prove how did you come about that. Okay, so I can't magically have the 5 million there, and then we nominate that, and you spent that for an investment, and then the 5 million comes back from somewhere we don't know about. This becomes very risky, and we need to ensure that our clients understand that whatever we nominate and whatever we say, we need to validate this. Okay. So the evidence of this would be accumulation of wealth, obviously progression, your bank statements, your tax payments, loan documentations. Okay. Digital currency are not a legal tender. Right? So what we need to do is you need to ensure that for whatever and however you accumulated these funds, there's documents to prove such things. Okay. If you were to be gifted a block of land from the government because you were to develop a project, these documents all need to exist.
Yeah,
the
so
contracts need to be there.
You need to prove the genuine source of funds of the gifter,
Correct.
the person that has given you the money, and you have to prove that taxes are paid. If it was a loan, provide loan documentation. If it's accumulation of wealth, you would show the accumulation of wealth on
Correct.
that end as well.
That's it.